Is there racism still in America? Hello Internet, I'm David and this is The Pursuit Blog. And this question is being raised in this country because of the death of Travon Martin. Now, in case you don't know, Travon Martin is a 17-year-old black young man, and he was shot outside of a convenience store just walking home. And he was shot by a very overzealous neighborhood watchman by the name of George Zimmerman. Now, George Zimmerman was patrolling the streets and saw Travon and thought he looked like somebody that the police needed to check up on. So he called 911 and he told the police, hey, there is a suspicious looking person walking the streets. And they told George not to follow him, but George did. And he got out of the car and he confronted Travon and a scuffle ensued, and George Zimmerman pulled a gun and shot a 17-year-old unarmed person. And the question has been raised whether or not this was an action that was carried out of racism, if George was racially profiling, if this should be labeled a hate crime. But, you know, I think the biggest travesty here is the fact that George Zimmerman has not faced charges for any of this. Apparently there's a loophole in the Florida law. But, I mean, he disobeyed what the police told him to do and it ended in somebody's death. I mean, that's got to be illegal somehow. But I will leave it to you all whether or not you think that this was an action that took place out of racism. You can leave me a comment down below your thoughts. The question has been raised, so that means that there's this conversation that is happening whether or not we are still facing racism in this country. And unfortunately, I think we are facing racism almost as much as we did back in the 60s. It's not as vocal, but I think it's very present. And I'm stunned. This is the 21st century and we're still judging people based on the color of their skin or their religious preference or their sexual preference. You know, you don't have to agree with somebody to respect them. And I think there's an overall lack of respect for other people in this country. And other is relative to who you are. But I also think that we deal with reverse racism in this country. For instance, if George Zimmerman was a black guy and he shot a white kid, would there be the same reaction? But what if it was a black guy that shot a black kid? Would there be the same reaction? What if it was a black guy that shot a white gay teenager? Would there be the same reaction? What if both of them were white? You see, if there's not an equal reaction to all of those situations, then I think we're dealing with reverse racism, which can be just as harmful as the real thing. I'm from Mississippi, and I know better than most what happens when racism enters the picture. My state has a terrible track record when it comes to race relations, and I don't want to see that anymore. You know, if Christians in this country, people who call themselves Christians, actually lived what Jesus said, I don't believe we would deal with what we deal with now. You know, because Jesus said to love everybody. And the only condition for everybody is that we are to love, I think even more, our enemies. Jesus says, if you love the people that love you, whoop-de-doo. Everybody does that. But he says, my followers are to be distinct for the fact that they love their enemies. So if you call yourself a Christian and you have a bias against a group of people because of the way they look, what they believe in, or the way they act, then I pray that God is working in your life. I really, really hope he puts you up close and personal with that group of people. Because I think barriers come falling down when we remove ourselves from the distance that we put. You know, when we call people them, we can make them out to be whatever we want them to be. And they become like this boogeyman in our heads. But I don't think that's true. So if you have an issue with Hispanic or Oriental or European or African or Muslim or Buddhist or atheist or homosexual or straight or whatever, if there is an issue that you have with those people for no other reason than they are who they are, then I pray that God will work in you and that you will just drop those things. Give people the respect that they are due because they are, in fact, God's creation. But let me know what you think in a comment or video response down below. This is a touchy issue and I'm curious to know what you think. And if you want to converse with me or find out what's going on throughout the week, make sure you follow me on Twitter and Facebook. Links are down below. I will see you all again soon. God bless.